An inquisitive butterfly passed, dipping between us. Two people in tennis shorts, a red-haired fellow only about 8 years my junior, with sunburnt bright pink shins, and an indolent dark girl with a moody mouth and hard eyes, about 2 years Lolita's senior, appeared from nowhere. As is common with dutiful tyros, their rackets were sheathed and framed, and they carried them not as if they were the natural and comfortable extension of certain specialized muscles, but hammers or blunderbusses or wimbles, or my own dreadful cumbersome sins. Rather unceremoniously seating themselves near my precious coat, on a bench adjacent to the court, they fell to admiring very vocally a rally of some 50 exchanges that Lowe innocently helped me to foster and uphold, until there occurred a syncope in the series, causing her to gasp as her overhead smash went out of court, whereupon she melted into winsome merriment, my golden pet. I felt thirsty by then, and walked up to the drinking fountain, where Red approached me, and in all humility suggested a mixed double. "I'm Bill Meade," he said, "and that's Fay Page, actress, ma fiancée," he added, pointing with his ridiculously hooded racket at polished Fay, who was already talking to Dolly. I was about to reply, "Sorry, but for I hate to have my filly involved in the chops and jabs of cheap bunglers," when a remarkably melodious cry diverted my attention. A bellboy was tripping down the steps from the hotel to our court and making me signs. I was wanted, if you please, on an urgent long-distance call, so urgent, in fact, that the line was being held for me. Certainly. I got into my coat, inside pocket heavy with pistol, and told Lowe I would be back in a minute. She was picking up a ball, in the continental foot-racket way, which was one of the few nice things I had taught her, and smiled. She smiled at me. An awful calm kept my heart afloat as I followed the boy up to the hotel. This, to use an American term, in which discovery, retribution, torture, death, eternity appear in the shape of a singularly repulsive nutshell, was it. I had left her in mediocre hands, but it hardly mattered now. I would fight, of course. Oh, I would fight. Better destroy everything than surrender her. Yes, quite a climb. At the desk, a dignified Roman-nosed man, with, I suggest, a very obscure past that might reward investigation, handed me a message in his own hand. The line had not been held, after all. The note said, "Mr. Humbert, the head of Birdsley School called. Summer residence, Birdsley 28282. Please call back immediately. Highly important." I folded myself into a booth, took a little pill, and for about 20 minutes tussled with space spooks. A quartet of propositions gradually became audible. Soprano, there was no such number in Beardsley. Alto, Miss Pratt was on her way to England. Tenor, Beardsley School had not telephoned. Bass, they could not have done so since nobody knew I was that particular day in Champion, Colorado. Upon my stinging him, the Roman took the trouble to find out if there had been a long-distance call. There had been none. A fake call from some local dial was not excluded. I thanked him. He said, "You bet." After a visit to the Purling men's room and a stiff drink at the bar, I started on my return march. From the very first terrace I saw far below on the tennis court, which seemed the size of a school child's ill-wiped slate, golden Lolita playing in a double. She moved like a fair angel among 3 horrible Boschian cripples. One of these, her partner, while changing sides, jocosely slapped her on her behind with his racket. He had a remarkably round head and wore incongruous brown trousers. There was a momentary flurry. He saw me, and throwing away his racket, mine, scuttled up the slope. He waved his wrists and elbows in would-be comical imitation of rudimentary wings, as he climbed, bow-legged, to the street, where his grey car awaited him. Next moment he and the greyness were gone. When I came down, the remaining trio were collecting and sorting out the balls. "Mr. Meade, who was that person?" Bill and Fay, both looking very solemn, shook their heads. That absurd obtruder had butted in to make up a double, hadn't he, Dolly? Dolly! The handle of my racket was still disgustingly warm. Before returning to the hotel, I ushered her into a little alley half smothered in fragrant shrubs with flowers like smoke, and was about to burst into ripe sobs and plead with her imperturbed dream in the most abject manner for clarification, no matter how meretricious, of the slow awfulness enveloping me, when we found ourselves behind the convulsed mead twosome. Assorted people, you know, meeting among idyllic settings in old comedies. Bill and Fay were both weak with laughter. We had come at the end of their private joke. It did not really matter. Speaking as if it really did not matter, and assuming apparently that life was automatically rolling on with all its routine pleasures, Lolita said she'd like to change into her bathing things and spend the rest of the afternoon at the swimming pool. It was a gorgeous day. Lolita. Lo! Lola! Lolita! I hear myself crying from a doorway into the sun, with the acoustics of time, domed time, endowing my call and its telltale hoarseness with such a wealth of anxiety, passion and pain, that really it would have been instrumental in wrenching open the zipper of her nylon shroud had she been dead. Lolita. In the middle of a trim, turfed terrace I found her at last. She had run out before I was ready. Oh, Lolita. There she was, playing with a damned dog, not me. The animal, a terrier of sorts, was losing and snapping up again and adjusting between his jaws a wet little red ball. He took rapid chords with his front paws on the resilient turf, and then would bounce away. I had only wanted to see where she was. I could not swim with my heart in that state, but who cared? And there she was, and there was I, in my robe. And so I stopped calling. But suddenly something in the pattern of her motions, as she dashed this way and that in her Aztec red bathing briefs and bra, struck me. There was an ecstasy, a madness about her frolics that was too much of a glad thing.